Welcome to the Digital Marketing Mentor. I'm your host, Danny Gavin, and together with industry leaders and marketing experts, we'll explore the meeting point of mentorship and marketing. We'll discover how these connections have affected careers, marketing strategies, and lives. Now get ready to get human. Hello, everyone. I'm Danny Gavin, founder of Optage Marketing Professor and the host of the Digital Marketing Mentor. Today, we have a very special guest, Andrew Foxwell, co-founder of Foxwell Digital, as well as Foxwell Founders. What does it mean he's the co-founder of Foxwell Digital? Well, Foxwell Digital is a social media advisory firm focused on honesty and transparency through its membership offerings, online courses, account management, and consulting services. Over the past decade, Foxwell Digital has helped hundreds of business owners, agencies, and brands grow and thrive through education, empowerment, and unparalleled authenticity. Andrew runs the Foxwell Founders, a community of 500 digital advertisers from around the world. They represent 27 countries, and members spend over $300 million a month just on Meta alone. Most recently, they have opened their doors to PPC marketers in addition to those who specialize in paid social. Today, we're going to talk about Foxwell Founders, mentorship, and of course, social media ads. How are you doing, Andrew?
I'm doing well. So glad to be here. Thanks, Danny.
It's so cool to have you here. I think the first time I heard of the great Andrew Foxwell was back when iOS 14 was happening and everyone was freaking out. And I remember my head of paid social, Joseph Wolf's like, hey, don't worry, check this guy out. He knows what's going on. So it really is. It's such an honor to have you here. I've gotten to know you a little bit better, over the past couple months, and yeah, it's just such a pleasure. Thank you.
Absolutely, man. I appreciate the kind words.
Cool. All right, so let's dive right in. Let's talk about where you went to school and what you studied.
Yeah, I went to St. Olaf College in Minnesota, a little liberal arts college, and I studied political science and I studied management studies, which was like a business, essentially, practical sort of business concentration there. So, yeah, and St. Olaf is known for music. So a third of the campus is involved in music of some kind. So I was in choir all 4 years, took private voice lessons all 4 years. Something I actually don't talk about a lot anymore now that I'm saying it. But yeah, I loved St. Olaf, and I loved being a part of that institution. I had the pleasure actually of serving on the board as the young alum representative 3 years after I graduated then. So I got to see even more about how the college is really run, which is, it was another fascinating journey. So, but I'm a big St. Olaf fan, and the school song is a waltz. So St. Olaf people, we all say ya to each other, which is in the school song. So it's really strange, honestly.
I never would have guessed that you were like part of choir. Let's talk a little bit about that. What you love about singing. Did you ever do a cappella? I'm so interested.
Yeah, I never did a cappella. I loved singing because it was just like it was a way to worship differently. And I didn't grow up. I grew up in a congregational church. It was sort of like, Christianity light, I think is a good way to describe the UCC church that I grew up in. And I loved going to St. Olaf in being in choir. It was a way that sort of was a meditative time every day. We had choir 3 times a week. And then we had a lot of performances on Sundays because we were sort of known as the choir that would be for worship services. So we would perform, and it was just a meditative time to get out of your head and into your body almost and do something else. And I'm just always loved music. It's always been a part of my life, and it was a way to honor that piece of me. And yeah, I think over time, sometime in my life in the future, I'll get back involved in choir. But yeah, I was not in an a cappella group. I was actually in a freestyle rap group as well at St. Olaf.
That's so cool.
Which is a whole other can of worms. Yeah.
Sounds like we'll have to add a channel to Foxwell Founders all about singing.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. That sounds good.
So when you look back at your experiences, both inside and outside the classroom, and now look at where you are today, were there any experiences that kind of pop out? It's like, that kind of pushed me in the direction that I'm in today?
There's tons, obviously. I mean, I grew up in the middle of the country, literal, like out in the country. And, growing up around that, I felt like I always hungered for just a what it was like in the places where, as Hamilton says, the room where it happens. I was always interested in that. And I had a real fascination. I've always had a real fascination with government and politics. So, an experience that changed my life was I volunteered on a presidential campaign in 2008. And then I went and worked in Congress I worked on a guy's campaign who then won, who was running for Congress. And he asked me to go to Washington with him. And that experience definitely changed the trajectory of my life. I mean, I met Gracie there, who's my wife and business partner in D.C., but that was really like getting a mini master's degree, because I was, I remember like the third day I was on the job in D.C. my member, his name was Eric, was asking me to like brief him on the legislation that was on the floor. I'm like 23 or whatever, right? I don't remember how old I was, but that's pretty wild. And I think the experience, one thing it really taught me was you putting yourself into a place where you feel uncomfortable is going to be a really great vehicle for growth. And it feels wrong. You feel like this isn't right. I don't know how to do this. And, but I admitted openly, I don't know actually, but let me find out. And that became a really good gateway for me, and has continued to be a gateway for me, even in running the community. I mean, people ask me questions all day long. I woke up this morning and I had 17 direct messages from members asking me questions, and I knew probably half of them. And the other half, I'm like, I don't know, but let me find out. And so that's an experience that really changed me. And I had a professor at St. Olaf who I did an entrepreneurship course with, and she also changed the trajectory of my life. Her name was Cian, and I kept telling her all these business ideas I would have, and I was like, I don't know, but is that a good idea? And she's like, why not? Why not start it? You don't know. And that kind of attitude, that an entrepreneur has is something that is really beautiful. And when you see that unlocked in young people now, when I talk to other people are thinking about it, I'm like, who knows? I remember one time a guy told me, I was a mentor I met in college, and he was on the board of regents, and they said, oh, he's a really successful business person. And he was. And I remember he said, well, where do you want to work? And I kind of told him, and he said, why don't you just walk into their office and drop off your resume, introduce yourself? And I was like, I would never do that. Who would do that? And he's like, what if you were the CEO of the company and somebody walked in and did that? That'd be huge. And now seeing that, I'm like, actually, he's right. He was right. Like, that was a good idea, And so I think those are kind of these, like, taking those calculated chances, and were really important in my life, and have changed a lot of what we've done. I mean, there's plenty more, but those are some that come to mind.
No, those anecdotes are awesome. So how did you get into paid social?
Yeah, I was working. So paid social was really interesting. I was working in Congress for this guy, and they had just changed the rule in the. So let me back up. There were only the ads in the right-hand column, okay, on Facebook. So there was a rule that had been changed right when I came into Congress, and it was that you could use social media ads to put, and Google ads. So it was like Facebook and Google were approved, and you could launch an ad. A member of Congress could use official money, so taxpayer funded money, to put out an ad. And the only answer for this previously had been putting out those glossy mail pieces. It's like, here's what Congressman John Smith is doing, right? And so this was an answer for that. It was more effective, and this kind of thing. So you'd say, like my page to learn about my economic policies, whatever. So you had to submit these ads to a bipartisan committee on language, and they would approve the ad. And then, because you couldn't like trash, certain things, and you couldn't use negative language because it was taxpayer funded. So it had to be sort of diplomatic in its language. So we did that, and then I realized, there was a big technological infrastructure that kept Congress afloat in terms of vendors that would do certain things like constituent communication and all this. So I became interested in one of those companies, and I went and interviewed with them, and their office was directly across the street from my house. And I only lived 6 blocks from the Capitol where I was working, but then this one was directly across my house, and I thought, oh, whatever. So I took this job, and it was really interesting. And then I noticed that there was this big gap for people, that members that wanted someone to run the ads for them. They didn't know, they wanted to run ads, but they didn't have the time to do it themselves. So like launch an account and all this. So I started launching ad accounts. So I think over the 2 years that I was at that company, I think I built it to, we ran ads for 125 members of Congress, of the House, which, is 365. So that was big. I was running ads for Pelosi. I was running ads for, I mean, it was crazy. And it was bipartisan. So I was friends with everyone. I would walk through the Capitol, and I don't know, it was really a wild time. Anyway, and that's how I got into Facebook ads. And then I started commenting on this blog for this company named PPC Associates, because they were on Quora, and they said, do you want to come run Facebook ads? Brands really need help. And that's how I got into doing it on the brand side.
So let's jump into mentorship. How would you define a mentor?
I mean, I think a mentor is someone you look to for guidance on any number of issues, someone that you can rely on regularly, that can give you thoughts and feedback, that you can speak freely with, that can hear you and meet you where you are without judgment, and can give you guiding words, of where you are headed, or where you think you should be headed. Yeah, I guess that's how I define a mentor.
Yeah, and I think in many ways, the community that you have built and are building, although it might not be mentorship in the technical sense, but you're basically creating a community of mentors that can help each other out, which is pretty cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I agree with that.
So let's talk a little bit about your most influential mentors throughout your life. I know you've mentioned someone like Peter Gosh, Wayne Gloak. Would love to know a little bit more about why they were important to you.
Yeah, I mean, I think early on I mentioned Cian Muir was a professor of mine in college, and she was an incredible mentor because she didn't say no. She didn't say, I mean, any idea was like, okay, like let's check it out, and fueling the dreamer within you is such an incredible tool that is so invaluable, that I really needed at that point, and somebody that believed in what I was trying to do, so she was a huge mentor in that regard. And I would go and meet with her and say, hey, I'm thinking about this or that. And, oh, okay, sure. And I remember one time, one really valuable thing she told me was, I was saying, well, I could take this product and then I could get this particular person to talk about it and validate it. And I could get this particular person to validate it. And I would tell this potential client, I'm working with them, and she's like, you are only as good as how you've built your network, and that integrity is really important, which I came back to thinking about recently in the last year. I've really been focusing this year on consistency and being the same person everywhere. Which as the youngest kid, I learned to be a chameleon to some degree, and would be, I'll be this way to mom and dad, I'll be this way to my friends, I'll be this way to this friend's parents. And I think that's okay, but I'm really trying to be consistent and be the same person and be genuinely who I am to everyone, and hold the same ethics and hold the same beliefs and all this, and give people the benefit of the doubt, all that kind of thing.
I just want to say one thing about that, because sometimes you meet people, like you watch videos of them and they're one way, and then when you actually meet them in life, they're totally different. I have to say, Andrew, like we've met in real life, and you really are like the guy, the awesome, funny, like smart, just nice person that you are, let's say on social media or on videos, and in real life, you're really the same person. So
thanks. Yeah. I mean, honestly, it's tough. It's been a tough journey, but it's good. It feels a lot better. It feels more genuine to me. So Cian had that big thought. And then when we launched Foxwell Digital, I thought there's no way we can do this on our own. Like, we need people to talk to. And we gave a talk in Madison, Wisconsin, where we were living at the time, at this co-working space. And we had given the same talk, what's possible with Facebook ads, at like 20 co-working spaces around the country. And it was great for lead gen and all this. And we were traveling around in our car, and we had like no money, and it was awesome. And I met this guy, Wayne Glowak, who was a director at a performing arts center, marketing director of the performing arts center. And he had said, well, I used to run an agency and all this. So I really leaned on him and told him about what we were trying and told him, I mean, like opened the book, right, of everything. And he gave such good ideas like building authority, how are people going to trust you? What are the ways you can do this? And he gave me so much great advice. And still does to this day. Actually, this last summer, Wayne and I went on a long 30-mile bike ride together. And he looked at me straight in the eyes. He's always had such a conviction in his words, and it's like a real same thing, consistent. And he looked at me and is like, I really appreciate our friendship. I'm like, me too, man. And he's like 65. You know what I mean? It's like, this is awesome. And then my other mentor that was massive was that I learned a ton from as I sat next to him at every board meeting at St. Olaf was a guy named Peter Gotch, who was basically a venture capitalist or an angel investor. And he had bought and sold all these businesses. And the one thing that I loved about always speaking with him is, and I probably spoke to him every quarter for, good 3-4 years when we started our business, was I would tell him ideas and he would be, I remember I was like, well, I think we should build a newsletter and become like the place for a newsletter. And it's going to have this and that. And we're going to send it out every week. And he's like, first of all, nobody reads anything something once a week. So absolutely no idea. It's also not going to be good. So you should do it once a month and you should make it really good. And and it was like the dismissive nature of the way he talked about stuff was, here I am thinking about this high caliber thing. And he's like, no, like nobody has time for that. So pay attention to this. And then I would tell him another idea and he would be like, okay, not a bad idea, but like, why don't you do X, Y, and Z? And he simplified a lot of things, where I was trying to, you try to complicate it in business. And he was like, he'd looked at so many businesses over the years. I mean, I don't know, thousands of businesses this guy had seen. And he had a track record of being incredibly successful because you just look at this and be able to turn things around. And he simplified it and was like, well, how are you getting customers? Well, how's that working? What are you doing? And I'll tell him, and okay, well, that's not bad, but why instead of continuing to grow the network, why don't you just focus on the people that are getting to know the people better that are sending you the best leads? I'm like, yeah, that's a good point. And he would laugh. He laughed all the time. It was sort of like, I don't know if you remember the NPR show Car Talk. And it was like these two guys, Click and Clack, and people would call in with car issues. If you've never listened to this, there's like archives of this. It's hilarious. And they laughed all the time. They would be like making fun of names and it was just hilarious. And it made you feel at ease. So that's one thing that I loved about Peter was he brought a lightness to it. And he also brought like a simplicity to it. I just spoke to him this last summer a bunch as well, and is still a good friend. So, so I think those people were huge mentors for me, for so many reasons, but it just warms my heart to talk about them now, because of like how big and influential they were. I mean, when you give someone time, when I was like no one, but they gave me time and they were like, yeah, that's interesting, because ultimately as a mentor, you learn just as much as the person is learning from you. It's crazy. I like mentor certain people. It's insane how much I take away from that. Right? It's like pouring, love into your heart. It's crazy. Or ideas into your head, and you walk away and it's like, I feel like there's branches sprouting from my head.
I love how passionate you are about this. It's so cool. You've said that you're searching for another mentor now. I'm wondering, what hole do you need to get filled now?
I mean, to be honest, Danny, now we have this community, and it's been great, and it's been growing, and I meet incredible people, and we help them, and it's amazing what we have accomplished. What I don't know with this now is what I don't know. Like, I mean, it's going well, but I also, and I believe that last January, I said to members, we're trying to build the Bentley of community. It's highly personal. It's unlike anything you've seen. When you're in it, because of how much it's aiding you, et cetera. Like it's a different experience, and it's kind of that like level of service. Like if a mentor actually, or one of our members was getting mentored by somebody else, and another member on a particular issue, and they said, "Well, I've been getting a lot of value out of this, but I don't know if I can pay for that person because I'm still learning on it." I said, "I'll just pay for them to mentor you for 6 months." Like it's that level of, or coach. It's like a coaching thing. It's that level of like, I don't like the cost is irrelevant. Like long term, if I can help you, it'll pay itself back. So anyway, so I feel good about it. But I also, there's so much stuff we in our own company as Foxwell Digital now. How do we do our own marketing? How do we continue to sell courses and build our brand? And to me, it's how do I continue to build wealth for our employees as well? How do we take care of the people that have helped to take care of us? How do we build programs that can be self-sustaining for them? So that's kind of like what I'm looking for in mentorship now, which is to sit down and open the book and say, here's the books, literally, and then here's how we run things operationally. Here's the way that we've changed it. I mean, because the way we've grown this is, I really believe strongly in the Kaizen mentality of the process of incremental change. And so we survey members every 60 days and we say, what do you think? And what do you want? What would change? And we get these little tidbits, and then we micro adjust off that and make changes off of that. And so, that's kind of how we've done strategic planning for the membership. But I feel like from the business side and the overall business, we've neglected it. It's like now I'm like, yeah, let's do a newsletter. I have a lot to say about like the things that you should do in 24 on meta ads. So we write a blog post about it, and then we put out a newsletter. It's not like in a cadence. It's not strategic. It's like, so I feel like there's just a lot more we could do. Right.
Really, I didn't prepare this question, but I'm just so curious. Between Foxwell Digital and founders, how do you divide your time? Is it 50-50?
I mean, so Foxwell Digital, we have clients that we run, and those clients have been with us for a while, and those are fairly self-sufficient. And our team is excellent because we learned how to, media buy together. And so, Shane, who's our director of operations, Shane's been with me for like 8-9 years or something. Courtney, who used to be a client of ours, and she was a totally brilliant client. And I always said to her, if you ever leave, just come work with us, because she's so smart. Just incredible taskmaster. We'll get like 100 things done in one day. It's unbelievable. And so that media buying arm gets taken care of. And then we have courses that we sell as well. And we're trying to do a lot more collaborative courses now. So my whole thing is like raising the tides of other members. So we're putting out in Q1, we're going to put out 3 courses, and they're all collaborative courses with other members. There's like 7 members wrapped into those collaborative courses. So how do we market and sell those? That kind of thing. And so splitting my time, and then there's coaching we do with agencies as well. And so how do I split my time is like, mostly it is on the membership, because talking to members, I just was on a half-hour call with a member, he's a brand owner, having some issues with an agency he was working with. So, that kind of stuff is like where I'm spending my time to make sure people are taken care of and things are connected there. So that's probably 80% of my time. And the other stuff is like, the marketing of courses and things like that. I feel like it's been okay, but it hasn't been a major part of it, because I feel like it hasn't been as strategic as it could be. So I hope to adjust that a little bit. I'd like to spend a little bit more time being more collaborative and making sure we're putting more good things out publicly, because I think that just helps everybody anyway, and it'll help our brand and things like that too.
And I think that's kind of how you started in the first place, right? Putting out good things, letting people know.
Yeah, exactly.
So last question about mentorship, just because, so you mentioned that mentoring is all about listening, breathing, and intentionality. I love that concept of breathing and intentionality. And it's the first time I heard that. I'd love you to go into that a little bit.
Yeah, I think that I think in anything and any interaction that you have, there's a lot of professionally or personally, one of the things that's common that takes place is, especially if you're in a mentoring capacity, you talk a lot. You want to be the person that's your ego is like, well, here's the things that I want to impart upon you, oh little one type. Your ego's like wanting to do that. And I think that the best thing that we can do is listen and breathe, and well, breathe first and take breath and just understand listen, and then be able to be with that person authentically and, take care of them that way. A lot of times it doesn't have to be anything that you're even saying. It's conclusions that person can come to by speaking about it outwardly as well. I guess what I'm saying is I'm a talker, obviously. I love to talk. There's if I was stuck in jail with I'd be a great person to talk. I can talk about anything forever. And so I could talk to a wall for years. So my thing is, how do I be quieter in order to be a leader or a mentor that helps truly listen? So I guess that's where that's stemmed from.
No, that's very deep, and I love how you explained it. So let's move on into Foxwell Founders. So what drove you to expand into also discussing PPC and Google Ads more in your community?
Yeah, so Founders was started. It was 2.5 years ago now. So we're recording this in December of 23. So it was in June of 21, and Nora was born, our daughter, in 2020, and then 3 weeks later we went into lockdown. So it was an incredibly hard first year of her life for Gracie and I, and for her. She had a lot of health issues, etc. So we really felt lonely in that journey. So we came out of 21 and came into 21, and I was like, and then iOS 14, and I'm like, what's happening? I'm like freaking out. And so I thought, well, there was another group that I was part of 10 people. It was so neat to be able to talk about this with 10 different colleagues. And so I thought, well, you know what? What if we tried it, fired up a community for people that bought 2 courses from us? I remember that the list was 31 people. We're not millionaire course sellers here. And I was like, all right, these 31 people, let's tell them we're going to launch this. And I think almost every one of them joined. And I thought, oh, okay, that's cool. There's a membership here. And so then I had a community. We had 20 people or 28 people, or I think it was something like that. And so it's grown and grown and grown. And as members have said, hey, I could really use a little help on CRO as well. Or I could really use a little help on talking about agency ownership. There's so many pieces of that. I mean, my gosh. So we just kind of continued to launch. Yeah, it's that's a whole other can of worms. So then you launch all these other channels, you launch all this other stuff. And then I realized we had a Google Ads channel, and then I thought there is a need for kind of getting into more Google Ads, because I think that for a long time it was only Meta ads, people did that, and then it was only Google Ads, and there was more of this that members were saying, no, we do both, and so there was this massive overlap, and I thought there can be more in here. So we had the PPC community that we launched in April of 22. That was a separate community. And now in December, we've just rolled it into our main community, because as a separate entity, it didn't have the legs and the ongoing legitimacy I thought it was going to have. And I think it was because I was still thinking in that old model of separate. And in reality, we're all kind of doing it all, to some degree. I mean, you even think about this one member named Joey that we have, who's a great Google Ads guy, Joey Binder. And Joey said he came in and he muted all the Meta Ads channels, but he kept the agency ownership stuff, he kept the CRO stuff, he kept the technical troubleshooting channels. And so it's we don't need to have those things be separate. They can just live in the same place, and we can actually support members better by having them there. So I still think it's predominantly for Meta advertisers, but I think we recruited a lot of really good people that are PPC folks, that are Google Ads people, that are brilliant, that have share their knowledge there. And, you know, members are able to get the support that they need. You know, I mean, I think it's incredible. A member had a question the other day about uh, something with lead gen something extension, and I was like, I don't know the answers. And, you know, we have Michelle Morgan is in there, who's like, you know, the co-founder of Paid Media Pros. It's like arguably the best Google Ads YouTube channel that exists. And so she answered in like 10 minutes. That's just crazy. That's just wild. So I think people, if you're genuine with people and you ask them and you know, you ask them to contribute, like, I think it's a good departure for some folks because it helps them to see what people are also thinking about, et cetera. So yeah, so we started to do it because I thought, well, we can do this and we can see how it works. And it doesn't have to be a big group, and it's not a big group. It's not a huge, it's not a big, it's not like a massive Google group of people, you know, it's like, but I think there's probably, of the 500, I think there's probably 140 people or something that are in the dedicated Google channels more actively, which is pretty good. It's fine with me.
And the crazy part is, like, it's some of the world's best. So it doesn't have to be the quantity necessarily, but the quality is definitely there.
Yeah. Oh, definitely. Yeah, I'm not a big numbers and stuff. It's irrelevant almost. It's more about, do people feel that they're getting the help they need?
So how do you facilitate mentorship and relationship building within the group?
Yeah, within the group, I mean, honestly, it's really asking a lot of like, what do you need? You know, what are you thinking about, or what do you feel like you're not totally great on? And it's a myriad of things. And I usually lead by telling people what I'm not good at, and they're like, well, you know, honestly, I'm not really good at this, and so I got mentored by this other person to learn this piece of this. So then I'll just connect members, and we pay. In some cases, it's a mentor or a member is happy to mentor somebody else, and they have no problem doing it for zero cost because they learn. And in some cases, I'll say, you know, look, I'm going to pay for this if you want to do coaching and / mentorship. And we pay right now. I think we're actively paying, I think something like 30 members to mentor other members. So, you know, again, it's like, financially, we don't have to do that. It cuts down on the margins, et cetera, but I don't really care. It's more about, is the person going to learn what they need to learn in the long term? And ultimately that's going to be more lucrative, and it's going to be better for them. So that kind of thing launched in about a year ago, and that's been great, you know, because people can get help. And so, yeah, we just connect them basically. And if the place where we fail and why people leave, which we don't have many people that leave, but they leave because they never got connected with a mentor, or they never connected with me telling me what they need, or they never joined a call. You know, we have 5 to 10 cohort calls a week. And so if you're not engaging in it, then you're not going to use it. That's okay. It might not work. And maybe it doesn't work with your schedule or whatever. But the people that are involved, you know, there's one member I hear from every day, probably asking me a question, asking me this or that. And I'm like, he's had 10 mentor sessions in the 6 months he's been in the membership because he's using it, you know, so good for him.
It's so cool how you make yourself available like that. I don't think there's anything else out there like that.
Well, I love it. You know, I mean, it's so fun to meet people like you. It's incredible. You know, I feel like we do these member meetups in person, and it's like hanging out with my friends, you know, so I really feel like I feel very lucky to do this work in my life at this particular juncture. And I feel like all the things that I've done right now, and this isn't an ego thing. I mean, I really believe this. I think I'm uniquely positioned to do this right now. And I don't know how long it's going to last, but I mean, I think you look at someone like Andrew Udarian, who runs e-commerce fuel, same thing. He is uniquely positioned to run that community, which is why it's so great, because he knows the business owner, store owner mentality so deeply, because he was that person. Same. I've been a digital media buyer forever. I know what you're going through, and an agency owner. And so it's really rewarding, because I feel like it's not hard for me to do this work. It comes naturally of the way that I'm just building it the way I would want it.
So how do you go about managing the different levels of experience within the group? Because I imagine there's like beginners, there's experts. You know, it's kind of like making people feel comfortable to ask a question. So how do you deal with that?
Yeah, I mean, I think in some cases, if it's a beginner level, we're going to resource them with the courses that they get. So, hey, you come in as a member, if you haven't taken this course, you should take this one course. It's interesting. It'll help you build it up. Also, there are no dumb questions here. Anything you have that's a question, you can ask it. If you feel embarrassed about asking it, I'll ask it for you. You don't have to even be tied to it. A member did that the other day on Google Ads, and so I asked a Google Ads question, and I probably looked pretty basic to folks, but I could care less. That member got a lot of value out of it. So meeting people where they're at, and also if they're a beginner, we will pair them with a mentor and say, hey, you should chat with this person more often. Courtney from our team does a lot of that. She's really good at helping to people that are, we're not great, I would say, for media buyers of the 0 to 10 that are like below a 4. Like you have, if you've like launched an ad, that's good. If you've done like a pixel installation, it's like, that's probably like the minimum, right? Like I think that's not a great place if we're like total beginners, but I think people that are more novice or they're learning on it, we can resource them up. And then after a while, it's checking in with them. It's how's it going? What's happening? What do you think? Are you still confused about this or that? Yes, I am. Okay. Then let's talk about this or that. Let's pair you with this other person. Let's give you some educational resources. And then, the high end, the high end folks, the people that are spending, $3 million a month. I just talked to a member the other day. They're the hardest to deal with because they're thinking in 3-dimensional chess. And it's a lot of stuff that I'm like, oh, I haven't thought about that because they're literally the world leading on this particular topic, and so they're doing things that make sense to me, but it's harder for me to facilitate that. So a lot of times with the higher end spenders, what I'll do is I put them together a lot. We have a cohort that brings a lot of those folks together. So that's one thing. We have a particular channel for high spenders, which is really interesting. And those people are back channel DMing, direct messaging each other all the time. I can see it in the analytics that there's certain members that just send DMs all the time. So I think it's sort of checking in with them and giving them a platform and a place to be, but also sort of leaving them alone until they really need something from me. A lot of times where I serve with the higher end spenders, I can definitely have thoughts on sophisticated media buying, of course, but where I tend to find value with those folks, or where I think rather they find value with me, is in complex human relations questions. Because if you're spending $3 million a month, you have a team usually, you have executives you're trying to present to. So I was just 2 weeks ago with a member walking through his Q4 presentation to the C-suite, how he's going to position the results and everything, and how he'll communicate that, and presenting empathetically to solicit feedback. And it's like, that is where I live with those people more. So it's trying to, it's tough, but I think that, I really am proud of that part of it, is that there's like such a huge breadth of experience in the group, and everyone, whether you spend $5K a month or you spend $500K a month, they're rating their membership 9 or 10 out of, is this valuable to you? So that's huge. I think it's because of just the personal listening and attention that I pay to these folks.
I'm really jealous of you because just to hear some of these conversations, like I feel like you're gaining so much information personally.
Totally.
It's so cool.
Yeah, it is. It's wild. The stuff I'll learn, I'm like, what now? I never even knew you could do that. I learn so much every day. That's why I love this industry. I feel like it's so great getting older and realizing the older I get, the less I know. I'm like, I don't know that. I've never seen that, and it's like always like a flood of information, right? And I love drinking from that fire hose because it's cool. It's like, it's harder, but it also gets better, generally speaking.
So let's pivot into social ads, specifically Meta and TikTok. So TikTok ads are relatively new on the ad platform market. What intrigued you most about it when it first launched, or even how it is right now?
TikTok, the thing to me that still intrigues me is how they set it up so quick, so how someone can quickly go viral. That was really hard to say for me. Like the fact that you put the percentage of people that are going on TikTok and know the formula and follow it, and within 1 month or 2 months will have a video with 1 million views is like incredibly high, right? And so there's something about that virality and the dopamine hit that comes from that that's just absolutely wild. So that to me is intriguing because that engine is fascinating. So that's one. I think on the ad side, it was definitely in 2022, it was like feast or famine. It was crazy. It was so wild, right? Like what you could do with TikTok, it was wild. And I feel like now it's steadied out a little bit, but there's still a lot of practical use for it. And I think the way that the targeting algorithm works with suggested content is unrivaled in the world. Meta's trying to catch up with Instagram, and I think they've done a great job with Reels. The thing with their numbers are, there's how many ever billion people in the world? 8, and it's like across the suite of apps, Meta has, I think, 2.5 billion DAUs. So I think even if you make Reels incrementally partially better, it's going to be amazing for the bottom line. But I think TikTok still, I mean, you ask certain people, what platforms are you looking at? And it's amazing how many people will say TikTok and the amount of time that they're spending because the content there is so good and it's just so relevant to them. And they've also incentivized people to create differently. And so, yeah, I think it's a very interesting platform for sure.
Digging a little bit deeper from an advertising perspective, TikTok allows you to have a choice of 5 different objectives or goals. So reach, traffic, app installs, views, conversions. Which do you prefer to use the most? Do you feel like, is there one that kind of works better?
I mean, we only do conversion ads on
Okay.
TikTok. Yeah. So I haven't done any of the other ones, and I can't speak to it honestly. But the conversion ads are good. I mean, I think it's generally speaking, the TikTok people that will convert are going to be lower quality over time as a cohort. They're not going to have as high of LTVs and things like that, I think, because it skews younger. But it does hold scale well, which is a very hard thing for an ad platform to do. So if you say I want to spend $2,000 to LinkedIn, it's like a disaster, right? But if you do that to TikTok, they'll do it. So that's a big thing. So the fact that the ad load piece is good, the fact that ad serving is good, the fact that it shows DAUs are stable, that's good. So yeah, we just do conversion ads, and they've done well. Spark ads have certainly been a great addition.
What about lookalike audiences? It's a powerful tool both in TikTok and Meta. How do the two compare?
I think the issue is you have data loss, especially on the Meta side with lookalikes, that just isn't as good. I mean, forever and ever, the lookalike everybody used was the lookalike of your purchase event on the Pixel, and the fact that has such data loss, that's really affected a lot of lookalike audiences. And so I still think there's use of them. I mean, you can use them and they're okay, depending on how much engagement the brand has. Engagement lookalike can be okay. I think TikTok is the same. It's hit or miss. For the most part, if you look at people that are really scaling on TikTok, it's a lot of simple demo targeting or broad for the most part. I don't think a lot of people are utilizing lookalike audiences as much.
When it comes to, let's say, the actual creative, do you feel like when you're running TikTok ads, does the creative need to be very TikTok-y, or could you technically use maybe an ad that you would be using on Meta? Any thoughts on that?
I mean, I think Meta ads have turned into TikTok-y style. You know what I mean, right?
That's
so
fair.
I think it's like, could you use a Meta ad on TikTok is like what it comes down to. Yes, I think they've shaped that in a significant fashion, and I think that they've really shaped it in the problem solution framework. I mean, of like, hey, like, do you have this issue where people are problem unaware or they're problem aware? That wasn't really something we did before. It was so much about like, hey, here's a product, we got 5 stars. And we started at that they thought they might need that product, or that they had an intent to buy a shirt, and now we're solving problems. Hey, does this happen to you? It shows a water bottle rolling across the floor, and it's for a water bottle holder, right, or whatever. So that's definitely a change in a big way. I think TikTok has helped with that adoption over time, and it's helped with that shift. I think ultimately in the creative, if you look across both platforms, and you look at shorts too on YouTube, we as marketers early on got spoiled and did too many things. It was like you could launch a bad ad and it would do well and get a 5x return on ad spend, and you were off and running. This was 4 or 5 years ago. And I think now where we stand is we've had to become marketers. A lot of us, we've had to become better. We've had to create ads that actually are going to hook people, are going to be engaging, are going to capture their attention. So yeah, I think, looking at what happens on TikTok and the framework that people are using there, or frameworks that they're using there, can be applied to Meta and vice versa. And I think there's a big overlap between them.
So because creative is key now, what do agencies or individuals who, like, they're used to doing all the technical side of optimizing and setting up campaigns, but they don't have a creative arm? Do you feel like the future is, in order to be successful, you have to have a creative arm? Is it just about having a good partner? I'm sure you've had those sort of questions come here.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think you have to build a creative arm in your agency if you don't want to. I think it certainly is help. It helps. People always love the all-in-one package, right? Like if you're at you think about it, like if you're at the car wash and you go to the car wash and somebody was like, okay, look, we can wash your car, but then to get it dried, you're gonna have to drive 3 blocks away, and then they'll dry it there. Like, people are like, why would I do this? I'm just gonna sign up for the platinum package and get it all done now, right? And so it's an attractive consumer standpoint. They want to have it all in one place, and rightfully so. So I think that will be beneficial to those people that want to do that. If you don't do that and you say, look, we have these creative partners we go to, setting up we have referral agreements with them, they're good, we trust them, and you want to continue to focus yourself on agency and media buying, the thing that you need to do as a media buyer then needs to become, or as an agency rather, is you need to be really great at analytics and reporting and telling a story. And you need to be really good at helping people understand their financials and being a good sort of like outsourced CMO. So I think if you're not going to do the creative thing, you have to do these other things really well. You have to help them make sense of what the heck's happening. You have to help them understand from a creative standpoint, from an analytics standpoint, from a click standpoint, from a prospecting and new traffic standpoint, and from a business standpoint, and help them say, look, we aren't just an agency that's going to run your Facebook ads. We're a marketing agency, and we're going to help you think through your marketing. What else are you doing? How are we pitching you? How are we taking big swings with creative to help guide these creative agencies in terms of finding a new angle that maybe we haven't tapped before? You have to do those things. So I think that's kind of what my advice would be for those people that are not wanting to build a creative agency in theirs.
Do you have any particular interesting success stories from TikTok ads? Maybe a brand or something personally that you've managed?
I mean, honestly, the craziest TikTok story to me is Ladder. I don't know if you've ever followed this particular company, but there's this guy. He's a member of the group, Greg, and he's the CEO of this workout app, Ladder, and they've scaled exclusively on TikTok. And if you Google, you can find he's talked about this publicly on some podcasts and stuff, and it's wild. Basically, the whole flow that they have built on their app is amazing. So if you're a subscription service and you've never studied what Ladder has done and how they go through cancellations and the flow of it all, sign up for a month and see what it's like. Even if you're never going to use it, it's crazy. The other thing is they scaled by utilizing hundreds of creators to help them, through basically influencers, to help talk about why Ladder was the key for them. And they looked at the marketplace and looked at every angle of a person they thought would be or is influential in the workout space that was like a perfect fit for Ladder, and they brought them in. They took great care of them. They paid them really well, even going in, not into the red, but making just some decisions that you're like, whoa. And they scaled that way through influencers. And so they use TikTok in that way. And it's been absolutely incredible because they brought so many people into their ecosystem that they could then retarget and things like that. So I think they're my favorite TikTok story, honestly, just because of the scale and the forward thinkingness that they brought to the platform. And I mean, I don't even know, they're a multi-million dollar company now, right? Like, and they came through the pandemic, right? When everybody was working out. They're not the Peloton, right? Of that story of everybody bought the bike and now everyone's selling it. Like it's maintained and grown. And so I think TikTok can be a great lever for growth. I think the issue is you can't with TikTok do what everyone else is doing and expect it to add a lot to your bottom line. I think with TikTok, because of the way it changes and because of the rapid nature of which iteration is necessary, you have to be on the leading edge of exactly what's changing in terms of trends. And if you can create ads that feature the trends that are happening at scale, you can be successful. But you have to be ready to be really obsessed with it for a period of time as you grow. That's really my like TikTok advice.
So to think that you like take, experience with Meta and how you deal with Meta ads and just suddenly bring that onto TikTok would equal failure. You have to look at TikTok a little bit differently.
Yeah, I think so. I really do. I do think. I think you have to. I think you have to approach it differently. I think you have to have you sort of have to have things ready. You just have to have a ton of creative. You have to be ready to know how it works. You have to be ready to follow the trends. And I think, and a lot of time. And I think if you can do that, it can do really well.
Love it. Last question on the matter. Are there any third-party automation tools that you prefer to use on either platform?
Third-party automation in reference to like optimization?
Optimization, yeah. Anything you like in particular?
I can speak more expertly to the Meta stuff, and they're always been really hesitant with like automations and optimizing on its own. So at this point, no, but it's not to say that there can't be an opportunity. I mean, for us, utilizing a third-party measurement tool is huge, helping to see what we're doing. For us, using a third-party creative measurement tool is big. And so, if we have those two things, we're pretty well set in terms of knowing what we need to turn up or down. And but yeah, we don't have any automation tools right now that I think have really. I mean, like there isn't currently an optimizer for Meta ads that people trust, in my opinion. Not to say that can't be built, but it's not something people utilize significantly right now.
And kind of related to that, AI. Are you using AI at all, whether it's ChatGPT or anything else, in particular when it comes to social ads?
Yeah, certainly testing on, landing page copy, certainly testing on ad copy, even to get ideas. It doesn't hurt. It's such a powerful tool. I think AI in reference to, image creation and things like that is getting better, isn't totally there, but is getting better. I think that over time, the AI optimizations that Meta will be making to your ads is going to be good. And I do think that it will help, but I don't think it's there yet right away. So we're not using it a ton, honestly, at this particular moment in time, but certainly in the next year, I can see a lot more of that adoption taking place because the platforms will just become so much more sophisticated.
Love it. So instead of our typical lightning round, I found out that you're a big mountain biker. Love to know a little bit about why you love it, how you train, any cool race stories. Would be great.
Well, thanks for asking. I love talking about mountain biking. Yeah, so I started mountain biking like 4 years ago or so, and started doing races a couple years ago. And I go up a lot of mountains, and you get to bomb down. It's the best thing because you feel like a 10-year-old kid. And so I took it really seriously last year in terms of training and in terms of trying to get ready for races. And I think I did 6 races last year. And I just got the Strava update, which is the app cyclists use or people that, work out. And I rode 2,400 miles on my bike in 2023. So it's pretty crazy number. But the best race story of recent is the last race of the season. I always wear in mountain biking, you can wear clip-in pedals, you can not have clip-in pedals. Okay. So most people that are racing, you have clip-in pedals because people think that they're faster and things like this. And if you look at the pro circuit, everybody's wearing clip-in pedals. And so I had clip-in pedals on my road bike, which I was using for a lot of training, long distance endurance training. But I didn't have them on my mountain bike. And so I put them on my mountain bike for the last race of the year. And I rolled up and I had, changed categories. I was in a category 2 and I thought, all right, here I am. I rolled up to the start line and I fell over in front of all the people I was racing against. And the guy goes, first time in clips? I was like, yeah, one of them actually. So I fell right over. But anyway, I took third in that race, which was huge because protected my ego, which is awesome. But yeah, I felt like total idiot for falling over. But you know what? Nobody I really knew was there, so it didn't really matter that much. But yeah, it was good. That was a good one. But no, I mean, racing's a lot of fun. It's just to me, it's just something to hold myself accountable. I feel better when I ride. And being in California, in Santa Barbara, where we live most of the year, it's so much fun cycling. And I mean, the other day I rode up on Tuesday, dropped my daughter at preschool, and she of course goes to this outdoor preschool. And I took my bike to the trailhead and I rode up into the mountains and I had my lunch in my bibs, and I got to the top of the mountain. I had lunch on top of the mountain, nobody around. And then I just came down. It was crazy. And then I went and picked her up from school. It was wild. And there's service on top of the mountain. So it was working, so, I mean, mountain biking, I love it. It can take you so deep in the woods. And, I spend so much time on the computer, right? That something that takes me into nature is just such a blessing. So yeah, I feel really lucky to do it. And I feel really proud of my body that I can do it.
So you can work hard, but also exercise hard. It's a good balance.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so.
So where can listeners learn more about you and your business and your community?
Yeah, foxwelldigital.com or foxwelldigital.com/membership. Good places. You can always email me if you have questions, Andrew@foxwelldigital.com. Yeah, that's where you can find me and you can find out about our community. And yeah, but I'd love to hear from anybody that's listening to this. So thank you for a great interview, Danny.
My pleasure. Thank you for being a guest on the Digital Marketing Mentor. And thank you, listeners, for tuning into the Digital Marketing Mentor. We'll chat with you next time. Thank you for listening to the Digital Marketing Mentor podcast. Be sure to check us out online at thedmmentor.com and at the DM Mentor on Instagram. And don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to your podcasts for more marketing mentor magic. See you next time.